The Organization of American States joins the worldwide condemn against Ecuador after the violent assault on the Mexican embassy in Quito. Argentine trade unions, social and human rights organizations filed a criminal complaint against the government of Javier Milei for threats against workers' protests. And the Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei assured that Israel would be punished for its mistake after the terrorist acts perpetrated by Israel in Syria. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The Organization of American States joins the world condemnation received by Ecuador after the violent assault on the Mexican embassy in Quito. The Ecuadorian Foreign Ministry attended on Tuesday an extraordinary meeting held in Washington to address the diplomatic crisis with Mexico. In this context, the arguments of Daniel Noboa's government were not well received by the attendants. A dozen ambassadors who took the floor and agreed on the obligation to respect international law and affirmed that there is no justification to break the inviolability of diplomatic headquarters. The issue will be discussed again in a new extraordinary session convened for April 10th at the request of Colombia and Bolivia.
In light of the serious situation openly contrary to international law that this unthinking and mistaken action by the government of Ecuador brought about, Mr. President, at this session, Bolivia takes due note of the statements made by the Deputy Foreign Minister of the Republic of Ecuador as well as of the two press releases issued by its foreign ministry over the weekend. In that sense, it's expressly stated for the corresponding legal effects that the Ecuadorian authorities confessed the Ecuadorian police's actions on Friday evening, April 5, 2024, at the headquarters of the Mexican embassy in the city of Quito. Ecuador were determined consciously and straightforwardly by the President of Ecuador, Daniel Noboa Acin.
In Colombia, the prosecutor's office filed an indictment on Tuesday against former President Alvar Uyiv as the alleged perpetrator of the crimes of bribery of witnesses in criminal proceedings and procedural fraud, for which he will be called to trial. This is the latest update in a long legal battle in which the Superior Court of Bogota last ruled in October against filing the case, following a prosecutor's request. The accusation was brought by the first prosecutor before the Supreme Court of Justice, Gilberto Villarreal, who took on a case that dates back to 2012. According to sources from the prosecutor's office, based on the physical evidence and probative elements, it was concluded that there are sufficient grounds to indict Uribe. The prosecutor's office has added that once the judicial distribution process is completed, the hearing for the formalization of indictment will be held on the date and time set by the judiciary. Upon assuming the case, Prosecutor Villarreal has 90 days to substantiate the accusation against Uribe, a term that will expire on April 15th. Uribe will be able to respond to the process at liberty, as this is the norm in all cases and the privation of liberty is an exceptional measure, according to the prosecutor's office. Let's review some facts about Álvaro Uribe. Uribe, aged 71 years old, is a Colombian lawyer, businessman and politician. He was elected President of the Republic of Colombia in 2002 and re-elected in 2006. His government was criticized for human rights violations, both buying in Congress to approve re-election, interception of phone calls of chuzadas to opponents, also linked to massacres carried out by paramilitaries and the creation of false positives. Uribe currently facing charges for alleged procedural fraud and bribery. Brazil's National Human Rights Council denounced an alarming upsurge in neo-Nazi domestic movements. The agency attached to the Ministry of Human Rights and Citizenship and communicated with the United Nations to issue an alert. The affair is particularly serious in the state of Santa Catarina, in the southern region of the country, where a large population of German origin is settled, and it is one of the areas with the highest number of neo-Nazi cells. The Council reported hate speech, especially directed against women, the black and sex-diverse population. In Argentina, trade unions, together with social and human rights organizations, filed on Tuesday a criminal complaint against the government of Javier Milei for acts of intimidation. The leaders claimed that the executive has imposed the presence of armed security personnel in the different workers' assemblies. According to the leadership of the Association of State Workers of Buenos Aires, these actions seek to intimidate the workers and keep them from mobilizing in favor of the 70,000 state employees who the national government has left on the streets. On Monday, Pope Francis expressed his support for the workers of the Argentine news agency Telam, whose closure was announced by the President Javier Milei. The highest authority of the Catholic Church expressed his concern for the situation of the news agency's workers and said that he prays for their improvement. On March 1st, the President ratified on national television his intention to close Telam, proceeding to fence off its two headquarters in Buenos Aires, the country's capital. He also deployed police forces to prevent workers from entering. The closure of Telam cannot be decided by the executive. Such a decision must be approved in the parliament, where there are no proceedings in process.
Sometimes it worries me a little, in communication, when I see a situation of insecurity. I think of the Telam workers, for example, as if they do not see the future and do not know for sure how the road ahead will continue. I pray for the workers, who are in that nebulous situation.
Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. The director of the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, Jagan Chapagain, arrived in Cuba on Monday. His visit to the island seeks to strengthen mutual cooperation. The senior official had several meetings in Havana, the Cuban capital. One of them was held at the headquarters of the National Assembly of the People's Power. There, the diplomat spoke with the vice president of that legislative body, Ana Maria Mari Machado. The director of the Humanitarian Federation took the opportunity to highlight the values of Cuban solidarity with all the peoples of the world, regardless of the conditions imposed by the U.S. blockade, especially in the sector of public health. During the visit to the legislative headquarters, Chapagain assured that it is important to improve the solidarity strategy.
One of the first points is to make aid much faster, and to be able to position aid in a much closer place so that it can be delivered faster, just before the crisis starts.
Haitis Transitional Council already has a roadmap. It is an action plan that prioritizes restoring justice, the rule of law, and a constitutional reform. This was announced by the parties, organizations, and alliances that make up the interim body. The Presidential Council and the next consensus government will be in charge of pursuing an agreement on arranging elections, among other top priorities issues. According to the document that discloses such decision, the goal of all these initiatives is to put the country back on the path of stability, peace, unity, and progress. On Wednesday, during the Eid al-Fitr ceremony, Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei assured that Israel will be punished for its mistake. Khamenei referred to the Iranian officers and workers killed in terrorist acts perpetrated by Israel in Syria. He recalled that the Persian embassies and consulates are Iranian territory wherever they are. He also highlighted the murderous campaign that has claimed more than 33,000 lives in Gaza, reiterating that Israel and its Western allies should be punished in an exemplary manner. In the same vein, hours earlier, the commander of the Iranian naval force, Alireza Tansiri, called for a coalition of Muslim armies against Israel. Despite extreme conditions and the absolute ruin of many areas of the Gaza Strip, Palestinians celebrate Eid al-Fitr as the end of the Ramadan is known. Peace did not arrive, neither did the food. However, the Palestinians of the Strip are not resigned to suspending a fundamental celebration for the Muslim faith. From today until Friday, the fast of the last month will be broken. In the tents where they are cornered by the genocidal occupier, they exhibit the symbols of this date. Many women have come as volunteers in spite of their losses to collaborate with the preparation of cookies for the children. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas called on the country to limit this holiday as a show of solidarity with Gaza. In Palestine, the Palestinian resistance movement Hamas revealed details of the proposal presented by the mediating countries on a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. The proposal negotiated by the United States, Egypt and Qatar for an agreement between the Palestinian resistance movement Hamas and the Israeli occupier consists of three phases. These include the rehabilitation of infrastructure and the return of displaced citizens, although the definitive withdrawal of the Tel Aviv regime's troops from the occupied Palestinian territories is not explicit. The Hamas movement indicated that Israel's position does not respond to any of the demands of the Palestinian people and the resistance. In this regard, it added that they will inform the mediators of their response once they have completed their analysis of the proposal in a responsible manner at a national level. On Tuesday, at a press conference at the organization's headquarters in New York, the United Nations Deputy Secretary General Amina Mohammed stated that the international community has lost its moral compass in Gaza.
I will say that for me of great concern is that we have lost our moral compass on Gaza as a humanity, as the international community, and we need to do something about that fast. We're late. There are thousands of children that continue to lose their lives, that live amputated. There are hundreds that we are waiting to come home, hostages I know well.
The President of the United States, Joe Biden, called the Israeli attack on humanitarian workers in Gaza outrageous and disagreed with its warlike approach to. The American president considered that the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is making a mistake in the handling of this war against Gaza and its repercussions inside Israel and internationally. Biden also stated that Israel must issue a ceasefire and allow full access to all food and medicine to Gaza for a period of at least 8 weeks. On the other hand, Netanyahu announced that a date has already been set for an incursion of his troops into Rafah, something of which the United States Secretary of State Anthony Blinken stated that his country has not been informed. The government of Turkey imposed restrictions on exports to Israel until a ceasefire is consolidated in the Gaza Strip. According to government authorities, the decision covers groups of products such as steel, fertilizers, jet fuel, among others. The measure came into force on Tuesday and will remain in force until Israel declares an immediate ceasefire in Gaza and allows sufficient and uninterrupted humanitarian aid to the Strip. This is the first significant measure by Ankara against Israel after 7 months of its genocidal operation against the Palestinian civilian population, a decision that, according to the Israeli regime, will not go unchallenged. We have a final short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Final short break. Don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. The European Union's decisive attempt to reform its immigration and asylum policy faces close vote in Parliament. This comprehensive overhaul aims to turn the page on nearly 10 years of isolated restrictions and instead establish common and predictable standards for managing the reception and relocation of asylum seekers. The measure has been strongly criticized by human rights advocates, and 161 civil society organizations have called on MEPs to reject it. The Left, with 37 members of the Parliament, and the Greens, with 72 members, oppose the reform, arguing that strict provisions promoted by the member states will degrade the quality of the asylum process and fuel violations of fundamental rights. The European Union's High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Josep Borrell, affirmed that the possibility of a high-intensity conventional war in Europe is no longer a fantasy. The head of European diplomacy called on Tuesday for the creation of a European financial mechanism dedicated to security and defense, as he considers that war is on the horizon. Several European officials have also cited an increased military threat in recent months as the world is moving from a post-war to a pre-war state. For his part, Borrell insisted that increasing competition between the great powers, high-intensity conflicts between states, militarization of economic dependencies, and disinformation are part of the European reality. In South Korea, polling stations closed on Wednesday after citizens cast their votes for parliament. These elections were considered as a referendum for President Yoon Suk-yeol, as voters were unhappy with the cost of living and corruption. 950 candidates and 38 political parties registered for this election in Asia's fourth largest economy. The exit poll suggested that the opposing Democratic Party, DP, and its allies were prone to winning a combined 183 to 197 seats in the unicameral parliament of 300 seats. It is also expected that Yoon's ruling People Power Party, PPP, and its satellite party would win 85 to 100 seats.
I'll watch the outcomes of the people's choices until the very end with a humble heart. Thank you.
At least 11 people passed away in Kenya after floods stemming from recent rainfall. In that regard, the authorities detailed the displacement of thousands of people in the 9 affected counties. Meanwhile, the National Disaster Operations Center urged residents of low-lying areas near riverbanks to leave their homes as a precautionary measure. In this context, the Nairobi government issued an alert for a dam collapse and requested citizens to evacuate to safe areas. Moscow held the International Fair of Intellectual Non-Fiction Literature, which aims at approaching authors of books and their readers and promoting comprehensive human development. Our correspondent Oleg Jasinski provides us for the details.
Reading is one of the most advocated government programs in Russia. From April 4th to 7th, over 40,000 visitors attended the International Spring Non-Fiction Fair arranged at the prestigious Gostiny Dvor Exhibition Center in downtown Moscow.
In 2023, the Non-Fiction Spring Fair had a record number of 40,000 visits for the 4 days it had lasted. In this edition, we can tell we are presenting 19,998 different books.
Some 300 publishing agencies invited literature fans to this space of knowledge through conferences, literary clubs, book presentations, poetry recitals, and scientific talks.
Anyone enthralled by the issues of science, art, international relations will surely find a book of interest here.
I found lots of interesting books to learn from many authors. Even authors themselves come and offer their hardcovers.
We purchase non-fiction books and also other books, even for children. I am a teacher, so I buy something for the little ones.
There is a wide variety. Very enticing titles. Several genres and new authors as well.
One of the most popular stands was TRUD, which means work in Russian, which provided popular science books, biographies of personalities from the world of music, film, arts and literature.
We have all genre books, such as non-fiction or fantasy, children's literature, or any other subject.
A good job is not possible without rest. As the fair lasts 4 days, we create a space for people to have the chance to rest. Sitting with the books they buy and even with screens that show videos related to our literary offerings.
The next book fair is scheduled for upcoming June, from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. at the Red Square, where poets and writers will meet their readers again. We'll be glad to be there.
teleSUR, Moscow. And we have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.